You had a great day. You ate well, you moved your body, and then 3 p.m. hit, and work blew up. And suddenly you're standing in front of the pantry eating crackers right out of the box. That is not a willpower failure. That's cortisol talking to your blood sugar. And today we're breaking down exactly how that conversation works and how to change it. Why do we keep going back to quick fixes, even when we know they don't work? Welcome to the Coach's Hotline. Glucose, grit, and grace. Real talk with coaches, no sugarcoating.
We're here to help you ditch the diet cycle, stabilize blood sugar, and finally feel at home in your body.
Because health isn't about restriction. It's about freedom, energy, and confidence.
Let's dive in. Welcome back to Glucose, Grit, and Grace, the Health Coach Hotline, the podcast where we talk blood sugar, mindset, and real life. No sugarcoating. I'm Coach Amber.
And I'm Coach Elaine.
And I'm Coach Elaine. And today's episode is one that I really think every single one of you has lived through and never had a name for it.
Right. That afternoon spiral where you're doing everything right and it still falls apart. We're calling that, and here's some alliteration for you, the Cortisol-Carb Crash Cycle. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand exactly why it happens and, more importantly, what to do the next time you feel it coming.
So let's kind of talk about what cortisol is. I mean, we see it all over Facebook, the internet, about cortisol and why the body releases it. I think cortisol gets a bad reputation on social media.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think. But we hear people talk about high cortisol, immediately thinking that something's wrong. But cortisol isn't the enemy. Cortisol is the one hormone that helps keep us alive.
Mm-hmm.
It wakes us up in the morning, it helps us to respond to emergencies, and it gives us quick energy when our bodies think we need it. So think of cortisol like your home's smoke detector. You want it to go off if the kitchen catches on fire. The problem isn't the alarm. The problem is when it's going off all day long because they think someone keeps burning toast. Our bodies were designed for occasional emergencies, not constant stress.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, do you think women today even know what it feels like to not be stressed? Because, we talk about it being fight or flight hormone. But we have to think about it's stress. It doesn't matter if we're being chased by a bear or what it is. It's when our
Mm-hmm.
bodies get stressed. So there is so much that's going on today. What do you guys think about that? Do we know what it feels like not to be stressed?
I don't think so. I think in our microwave instant gratification, high productivity, low vacation kind of society that we are always on the go. And we're always pushing, and our bodies never get a break. And it's fascinating to me how that ends up tearing up our bodies from the inside. So I have some geeky science for you guys if you want to hear it. So like Elaine said, cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's a good stress hormone because when it's released, it's anti-inflammatory. It speeds our tissue repair and it controls like excess immune cell production. So in a real emergency, having it in our bodies is a great thing. But chronic stress causes elevated cortisol that's ongoing, right? And so it keeps the cortisol high. So it prevents the body from ever leaving that fight or flight that Coach Elaine talked about and into a like rest and digest. So when we have prolonged high cortisol, it slows the production of beneficial prostaglandins, which are the things that support immune function and they are anti inflammatory. But if the cortisol is saying, no, we cannot produce those prostaglandins yet because we're still in stress, then our tissues start breaking down and they can't, and they start getting inflamed, and we're not getting the prostaglandins to quell that inflammation, right? And then during periods of elevated cortisol, some of our immune cells, they're cells that are called natural killer cells, which I thought was an interesting name, but they primarily fight cancer cells. And we all have cancer cells in our body. And when our health and immunity is regulated, those natural killer cells can kind of absorb those cancer cells. But when they are no longer being produced because we're in this state of high inflammation because of high cortisol, we can see problems there as well. And it can increase inflammation and also immune suppression. So that's just kind of on the immune side, but then it also affects our blood sugar, right? And that's what we're all about. So cortisol raises your blood sugar by signaling the liver to release our stored glucose for energy. But simultaneously, at the very same time, it's saying we need more glucose for energy, but we're not going to let the cells absorb that sugar. So it causes temporary insulin resistance. And so while helpful in short bursts, right, that prolonged release more glucose, but don't absorb it, causes insulin resistance, which is why people with stress end up with dysregulated metabolic function, right? So I thought that the science behind it is very fascinating, that our cells are so smart, and yet how they can get like overtaxed and overburdened, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Elaine, when you talked about how the cortisol raises blood sugar, because this is probably one of the biggest aha moments. Many people think that stress leads to eating sugar, which leads to blood sugar that goes up, when actually the stress alone can increase your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that your ancestors, they're walking through the woods. A bear appears. Your body doesn't know if it's going to run 5 miles, if it's going to run 2 miles, if it's going to climb a tree. So before you even move, like you said, your liver releases stored glucose into your bloodstream. And why is that? Because muscles need fuel.
Mm-hmm.
That's cortisol doing exactly what it's supposed to do. But think about this. Your body doesn't wait until you're halfway through running from the bear before giving you energy. It's preparing you first. So think of this from a modern twist. The problems today, the bear is an email that you get, could be the traffic you're driving in, could be caring for aging parents, kids, pets. It could be financial stress, could be poor sleep, could be doom scrolling, or it could be, and through all of these, whether it's an actual bear or any of these items, your body still prepares you to run,
Mm-hmm.
and you may be sitting at your desk. So one of the reasons why this is so important for women over 40 and why they may notice it more. And we have many women tell us, I never struggled like this before menopause,
Right.
or perimenopause. And that's actually really common. Estrogen helps our bodies stay more insulin sensitive. But unfortunately, as the estrogen declines, blood sugar becomes more unpredictable.
Mm.
Sleep often gets worse. our muscles naturally decline, stress tolerance changes. All of these things make the cycle easier to get caught in. So imagine driving when estrogen is higher. It's like having really good brakes. After menopause, those brakes aren't quite as responsive. So you can still stop, which is a good thing, but it takes more intention. So that's where we have to really help our bodies to be able to control this. Like I said, cortisol is not a bad thing, like we talked about earlier. It is our body trying to protect ourselves, basically.
Mm-hmm. So from a blood sugar standpoint, Amber, when our
Mhm.
cortisol is high and it's asking us, it's, releasing that extra glucose for that
Mhm.
energy, what happens? We've kind of talked about that homeostasis that we need to be
Mhm.
in, and when our blood sugar rises and when it crashes. So walk us through where our blood sugar is rising, and then walk us through kind of the metabolic visual of what's happening.
Yeah, so I would actually love to because I also love me some sciencey stuff. And I'm going to repeat a few things, but I want to make sure that we've got a very clear picture. So cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone, and it is produced by your adrenal glands. And like you guys were saying, it acts as a natural alarm system, which I love the idea of the fire alarm going off. That was
Yeah.
genius. I'm going to use that. But it acts like a natural alarm in your body to help you react to perceived danger. Now, way, 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 way back in the day, it was being chased by a dinosaur or something like that. There are very few dinosaurs that chase us anymore, and yet cortisol is still a huge issue. But when your body perceives danger, and truthfully, it doesn't know the difference. It feels the stress, and whether it's a bear, a dinosaur, or a cruddy email from your boss, your body doesn't know. It's kind of like that. Your body doesn't know you're trying to fit into a new pair of jeans. Your body doesn't know that you're not in actual physical and imminent danger. And so your blood sugar increases to give you that immediate energy. Because if you're running from something, you need the energy. It elevates your blood pressure. And something that I found really interesting as I was researching this, it temporarily suppresses non-essential functions. And like Elaine, you were saying, the immune system, but also digestion.
Yeah.
And so if you have just eaten lunch and then got a cruddy email from somebody, imagine what impact that's going to have on how you are feeling in general. Because your body's like, I don't have time to digest this food because we have to go run from a bear. And so not only is your blood sugar dysregulated, you're feeling that stress, but other functions in your body stop working as well that can really just make that overall icky, yucky feeling.
Right. And then afterwards, because you're not eating or you're
Mhm.
not digesting your food, whether you've eaten or not,
Mhm.
then your blood sugar will crash, right?
Yes.
Because it's not getting its nutrition. And when your blood sugar crashes, all of a sudden you crave the starchy carbs because your brain is saying, wait, I do need energy.
Mhm.
I do need this. And so it's just a bunch of mixed messages that are going on in your immune system, digestive system, stress system, brain, and your body is just kind of confused. So, what are your guys' thoughts on why, when this happens and when we're in a stressful situation, why is it that we go for those starchy carbs? We'll eat a tube of cookies or pull out our Girl Scout cookies or our crackers or a bag of chips and just eat like we've never eaten before. Why do we do this when we know that salad or protein and fruit gives us more energy in the long run?
Well,
I
and
think
what's
this,
really interesting, you're right. When I'm stressed out, the last thing I want is to sit down to a nice salad,
Right.
right? So I think when we talk about this, I think one thing that's really important to understand is that carbs are not all created equal. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that because that salad with all of those vegetables is a carb. Also, the crackers that we're eating out of the box, still carbs, but they're not the same. So we've got our complex carbs, which are complex, it's interestingly enough, in the sense that they also have fiber, which helps slow digestion. And we know how important fiber is for us. But then there's simple carbs, and those are the fast burning fuel carbs, which, if we're being chased by a dinosaur, is going to help us a lot more than that fibrous complex carb. And so when we are in stress and experiencing high levels of cortisol, again, our body thinks it needs to give us fast energy. And so it's going to crave the things that convert to glucose most quickly. Which are going to be those simple carbs and not the salad that's slow digesting and fiber rich. And so
yeah,
what
and I
we
think that
know is that when we have chronic dieters and people who are restraining in their eating, they are often more reactive to this cycle and not less, because they're already disrupting their cycle of fueling their body, which exacerbates everything.
said it really well, Amber, when you talked about, you know, getting the fast carbs versus the slower ones. Our body knows that as soon as we eat a cookie or a cracker, that our blood sugar is going to spike because it converts to sugar much
Mhm.
easier than what some of those complex carbs do. So that's really important to kind of note, what it is that our bodies really need in
Mhm.
order to handle the situations that we're in.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about this in terms of dieting mindset, right?
Hmm.
Because when we're in a dieting mindset
Yep.
and we're depriving ourselves already, we're cutting out either kinds of food like not eating carbs or not eating fat or only eating
Mhm.
protein. So our body is stressed already. And then we have a stressful event. And so our body is saying, I need energy fast. And then we go to the pantry. And while we're deciding what to eat, all of a sudden we look down and we realize we've eaten a half a box of crackers. So, and then we get that guilt and that shame spiral. It's like, oh, I have no willpower. Why can't I do this? I'm such a failure. But we need to understand that that's not, I mean, sometimes, yes, it's emotional eating, but
Mhm.
it is not, it's a physiological thing more
Mhm.
than it is a thing about guilt and shame, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off of what you said, emotional eating, if you think about it, is very rooted in stress.
It is, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, if you are having an extra emotional day for whatever reason, your stress is going to be higher, which means your cortisol is going to be higher. Your body thinks that you are in panic mode and needs to take care of you. So, it's going to say, please give me the thing that's going to convert to glucose fastest so that I can help protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes in the form of cravings. Where the diet mindset really messes with us is that we see cravings not as a biological response to stress, we see it as a personal comment on our capacity to have willpower.
Yeah, a failure.
Exactly. And
Yes.
whether we're being good or not, you know, rather than what it actually is, it's a biological response to the fact that we're stressed and have a lot of cortisol in our bodies.
And when we can slow down and recognize that
Hmm.
and to take a step back and say, okay, what's really going on here? Then
Yes.
maybe we can get out of that guilt and shame cycle, because that's not what we are about at all. We're about
No.
intention and um, attention. So paying attention and being purposeful and balancing it, right? Just
Hmm.
one little step at a time, without shame, without guilt, without judgment.
Absolutely.
Right. So one of the ways that we do this is with our PFC3 balanced meals, right?
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
how it has become not just a nutritional plan, not just a way to eat, but it really can become a stress management tool. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it really is. And when you talk about the cycle, like of the stress and the physical hunger versus emotional, the good news is that the cycle isn't permanent.
Yeah.
We can actually interrupt it before it turns into standing at the pantry and eating the crackers, and then wondering where they all went. So let's kind of talk about proteins, fats, and carbs, and how this all works together. So the one thing is, I love telling people that food isn't just calories, it's information. And that's why, honestly, it was a huge breakthrough to not have to worry about calories. So, if we talk about when we eat protein, healthy fats, and quality carbs together, we're sending a body a message. And that message is saying you're safe, your fuel is strong. And that helps to reduce those blood sugar swings, those spikes and those dips. And that's what's really important is being able to control those spikes and dips. I know in a couple of other episodes we've talked about kind of being in that homeostasis.
Mhm.
And when we're not in that homeostasis, we're going to see this like very sharp roller coaster ride. But the way we can control that is by eating those proteins, fats, and carbs. And
Hmm.
as a reminder, proteins help to slow our digestion.
Yeah.
They support our muscles and they promote fullness. It
Hmm.
also provides the building blocks that our body needs to repair and to recover.
Yeah.
Then we move into fats. And the fats is what slows how quickly our food leaves our stomach. So it helps keeps us satisfied. And what that means is that the glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually. So it's not this spike. It's not like, give me all the sugar, give me all the glucose. It actually takes its time, and the fat helps it to kind of, um, I don't want to say slowly, but to make sure it's going through our bloodstream at a rate that doesn't spike our blood sugar.
Hmm.
You may get a gentle rise, which is fine, but you don't get that shooting up spike and then that drop once all of that glucose has left your blood system. And then let's talk about carbs. So many times we think carbs are the enemy. We think we have to give up all of those carbs and only eat protein. But they're your body's preferred fuel. So think
Hmm.
about it. When we are somewhat stressed, our body wants the carbs.
Mhm.
So the goal, though, is to have healthy carbs, but the goal is to pair them with the protein and the fat so that then we get steady energy rather
Hmm.
than the quick bursts. So I'm going to give you another analogy. Think about building a campfire. Um, Paper burns fast, but a log burns more slowly.
Hmm.
So think of that log as your protein and fat that keeps the fire burning.
Love that.
So instead of lighting a match every few hours, you're going to put another log on the fire.
Mhm.
And that's one reason why we also teach eating every 3 to 4 hours.
Yep.
Because when we go too long without adding that log or without eating, especially during a stressful day, our body doesn't think we're dieting. It thinks that food is scarce It doesn't know
Mhm.
the difference between scarcity and dieting.
Mhm.
And one of the body's responses, increase stress hormones to help keep blood sugar available. So, like I said earlier, just like your body doesn't know if it's dieting or food is scarce, it doesn't know if you're in a meeting or and it doesn't know when fuel is going to show up again.
Mhm.
If you're already stressed and then skip lunch, you've stacked one stressor on top of another. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important to make sure that you're having those proteins, fats, and carbs every 3 to 4 hours. And then do we want to kind of talk about interrupting some of that cycle of what we have? What do you guys think? Are we ready to go there?
Yeah. You know what? Actually, I do because I think because the food is only part of it. If you are eating, because and even we talked about it at the beginning, when you're eating, stress still is an issue. And so I
Absolutely.
definitely think we should talk about interrupting the loop. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got 3 ways here that we can interrupt that cycle. So let's
Mm.
look at some of that. And I can tell you I have firsthand experience with box breathing. I have seen it work wonders. So let me explain what that is a little bit. It's when we slow our breathing down. And when we slow our breathing down, we're sending our nervous system a message that says, the emergency's over. It's not magic, it's physiology.
Mhm.
So what we do is you breathe in for 4. So I can't breathe and talk at the same time. So
We'll do it.
one,
You
two,
talk.
1, 2, 3, 4. You hold it for 4, and then you exhale for 4 and hold that for 4. And you repeat this for about a minute. Sometimes your body just needs oxygen before it needs cookies. So I can tell you, my husband was running a triathlon. Well, it was actually a biathlon. He wasn't able to swim at that one because of an injured shoulder. Um, so it was a lot of running. It was a very hot and humid day in August here, but it's actually in Indiana. He came in from that last run, and I'll tell you, you guys, he scared me. All right. He couldn't catch his breath. He was basically freaking out. So I had him sit down and we did the box breathing. And I can tell you within 30 seconds, he was finally able to start breathing and move on. His body was under stress. His cortisone levels were high. He was in fight or flight um, mode. So sitting down and having him do the box breathing worked wonders. So again, firsthand experience on that one.
Well, and just
The
to
other,
add on to that, think about how powerful the box breathing was for someone who is like literally, there could have been a bear chasing him, right? And
yes,
so if it
yes.
was that powerful for somebody who was literally running and
Uh-huh.
had such high cortisol, think about how powerful it can be if it's, not to minimize, but like just the email,
Oh,
or just,
absolutely.
I think that
Yeah.
that just shows how powerful it can be when it was such an extreme situation and it was still very effective.
Mhm.
And I can tell you when I'm driving in my car, and if I get frustrated with traffic,
Hmm.
number one, I tell myself, there's nothing I can do about this. Okay. So, and I will box breathe. And it's
Mhm.
amazing how it's like, okay, you've calmed down. And again, there's nothing you can do necessarily about the traffic that's in front of you. And I can make it home. And again, it is amazing how well it works. You would think something that's that simple. We just need to take the time to do it.
So I have a little bit of geeky science again because I'm learning all this stuff and it just fascinates me how complex the body is. So
Yeah,
that box breathing does so many great things because it
it
slows your
does.
heart rate down, right? It feeds oxygen to your brain and your blood and your muscles, but it also moves your lymph, and your lymph system is what cleans out your body. So when you are deep breathing, it gives your lymph system the chance to go in and grab that extra cortisol, that extra glucose, and all that other stuff and bring it out of your body so that your system can calm. So it's like this
Yeah.
three-tiered thing that happens. And it's not just that you're breathing, it's that you are doing something on a cellular level for your body.
Yeah. And it's so simple to do, and you don't have to do it for like 5, 10 minutes.
No,
It's
yeah,
amazing how 30 seconds to a minute can make a huge difference.
exactly.
So to me, I think that's the number one tool. I fall back on box breathing a lot when I need. I shouldn't say a lot, but when I need to. So, so I think tool number two, and I still do. I actually do this when I eat. I typically will eat my protein first. So we're not saying don't eat carbs. We're saying if you're craving something sweet, have that protein first. So think about have a Greek yogurt and then some berries. A lot of times a lot of my go-to, at least quick meals, is turkey and an apple and maybe some nut butter or some almonds. I will eat my turkey first, and then I'll have my almonds, and then I'll have my apple.
Mm-hmm.
Cottage cheese and fruit, hard boiled eggs, and then whole grain crackers. Turkey roll-ups. Now I know that's not necessarily having your protein first, depending on what you have rolled up in your turkey, but it's still a great way to help control or to help break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And then chicken and grapes or chicken with grapes. So often the cravings become much more manageable because you've given your body a steadier fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of feeding your craving, feed the need. That's one of
Mm-hmm.
those lines that I'm hoping that you will remember when you're under that stress. So you
Yeah.
may be craving something, but what is it that your body needs? So I think
Love
the
it.
last tool that I have found that kind of helps with my clients and with me, and this is a 5 minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
When we move our muscles, it can take up the glucose from our bloodstream more effectively. So a short walk also helps to lower your stress and it signals to the body that it's okay to come out of high alert. So walking to your mailbox, I know I have a longer driveway. Sometimes I'll walk around my driveway. So we just need to take that small walk, get moving, walk around your kitchen, walk around your island, um, and just think about if your body prepared you to run from a bear, sometimes the actual thing you can do is to really move. Even a lap around the office, like I said, a walk to the mailbox, a walk around the block, just 5 minutes counts. So, to kind of wrap up the things about what we can do to break that cycle. So, if stress pushes us into that cycle, the answer is not more restriction, it's more support. So, support your nervous system, support your blood sugars, support your body, and you'd be amazed at how quickly those cravings don't feel nearly as overwhelming.
Thank you so much for that, Elaine. That was beautifully said. Absolutely 100%. And what I love is that they're very easy and actionable. You know, you don't have to like plan for them to be able
Right.
to help. And they can be very in the moment. And I
Mhm.
love that. So let's go ahead and start bringing it home. What do we want our listeners to walk away with today? Especially because we are glucose, grit, and grace. Let's talk specifically about the grit and the grace because we've talked a lot about the glucose.
Yeah, we did. We did.
We have,
So I'll start
yes.
with the grit. The goal is to never get your body in a situation where you are like craving
Yes.
your food, that you are like just need to throw food into your mouth. So it's noticing a pattern. It's keeping your body fueled on a steady basis, always paying attention so that you know what your body needs and you're not depriving it of anything. So that's the grit. The grit is paying attention and putting your health needs first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think the grace is to realize that one stressful afternoon doesn't undo the whole day or the whole week.
Yeah.
That we need to give our grace, that stress is going to happen. We cannot avoid stress.
Right.
Stress is all around us. But to remember that, okay, so maybe we have that bag of chips or those crackers. It's okay. In another 3 hours, we can have our proteins, fats, and carbs. Or if you just had that bag of chips, have some slices of turkey with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't undo everything
Yeah.
that you set out to do. So give yourself grace.
Oh, I love that. All right, and now I have a challenge for all of our listeners. I am fairly confident that every single one of us will have a stressful episode, probably today. And if you figured out how to eradicate stress, please put that in the comments because I need to know it. But the next time that you have a stressful event, name it out loud. That is cortisol, not hunger.
Mm,
And notice what shifts. Because once you've named it that it's cortisol and not hunger, you can then go into those three tools that Coach Elaine gave us to mitigate the cortisol rather than feeding the craving that actually isn't hunger. All right, so that's it for today's episode. If this hit home, please share it with a friend who's had that 3 p.m. pantry moment more times than she'd like to admit. I know we have all had them many more times than we'd like to admit.
that's true. Remember too to follow us, give us a review, and message us your own cortisol carb story because we might feature it on a future episode.
Absolutely.
And until next time, stay balanced, stay gritty, and give yourself some grace.